Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a controversial Rolling 60, Little Fee. Little Fee was born on December 1st, 1965. Little Fee grew up and had a hard and rough upbringing. His grandma tried to keep him from going down the wrong path by putting him in sports like football and basketball, which Little Fee took a liking to and worked hard whenever he was playing. But it would be the opposite for him at school. Little Fee wasn't much of a good student, with his focus not being there, and he was often angry and would get into it with the other kids. Little Fee built an early reputation as a young dude who was with the business and not to play with. Little Fee came from a generation where Crips and Bloods started spreading all over LA County. Little Fee during this time became a part of the Rolling 60s. The Rolling 60s became a big and fair game in the city of Los Angeles, and Little Fee became a well-respected frontliner for the 60s and well-hated opposition for his enemies. Like I brought up in countless videos, the Rolling 60s and the Gangsters would embark on a war in 1979 that still goes on today. They were once allies, but turned rivals after the death of a young beloved 60. Little Fee, like countless of others from both sides, made South Central like the Wild Wild West, having countless shootouts and bodies dropping on both sides. Little Fee became known for gun battles and doing a lot of shootings, but he also was always on go to run a fade and never backing down or turning down nothing. But his destruction in the street will all lead to Little Fee being sent to youth authority to serve a sentence. In 1983, Little Fee would run into a lifelong rival from Gangster, the notorious Mr. Kody, while both was in YA. They would notice each other from across the field, but were too far to approach each other, so they both mugged each other and threw up disses to each other's hood. In Mr. Cody's words, he sent another Gangster named Little Stag who was in Little Fee's unit to beat him up, which Munster claims Little Stag did. But by 1984, Munster and Little Fee were both out of jail, and they would have an altercation on the street. Mr. Kody claims he was with Little Hard from Gangster when he noticed Little Fee with a group of 60s. Little Fee didn't notice them, so Munster wanted to sneak up on them and catch them slipping. Munster let off shots on the crowd. Munster would say a lot of them ran, but one of the main people firing back was Little Fee. They embarked in a shootout, but Munster was outgunned, so he ran off. In the group with Little Fee was some 60s, but it was more other hoods like the Raymond Ave Crips and the 30 Crips. They meant to talk about business and form an alliance against common rivals, and Fee focused with Munster and the Gangsters and knocking them off the planet. Munster will learn this from Crazy Keith from Rolling 30s, who Munster pressed for more info about what happened. This made Munster hot. He wanted Little Fee's head, just the way Little Fee wanted his. Munster and Little Stag thought about kidnapping Little Fee, since they knew where his grandma lived. Just months later, in '84, Munster Kody and Little Fee will both be back in jail where they would run into each other. This is where Big Rebo would give the account on Kev Mack's channel of him stepping in on their beef, trying to promote Crip peace. Munster was in jail for a shooting against Little Fee's crowd, and Little Fee was only in there for a strap charge. But that would change. It would become more serious after more charges gathered on Little Fee while he was locked up. On the early morning of August 31st, 1984, two men, Darren and Horace, would go to a woman's house named Ida. They had Ida drive them to pick up Little Fee. After getting Little Fee, Ida was directed by Darren to pull up to her address that he had written on a piece of paper. He told Ida to park down the street and leave the engine running. According to Ida, one of the men said they were going to take everybody's life before they jumped out the car. Ida would say she heard several shots inside the house, and then 2 to 3 minutes later, the three men were running back to the car, and they drove off. Ida dropped them off to a club called the Vermont Club. Several neighbors would say they seen Little Fee leaving the house with a strap in his hand and run away from the house. He was later identified out of a live lineup. The scene inside the house was shocking and graphic. The group of men busted inside the home of NFL players Kermit Alexander's family and slayed whoever they could. It was a tragic sight. When police arrived at the home, inside was Kermit's mom. She was shot multiple times in the head, taking her life. Kermit's sister was in her bedroom when she also was shot multiple times, suffering the same fate. The shooters will also take the life of 2 kids while going through the house. One of the shooters would get into a physical altercation with another kid that was inside the home. They would wrestle over the strap, and the shooter fell on the trunk that was inside the room during the altercation, which later matched Little Fee's fingerprints. The child got away after leaving out a back door. Another child would survive by hiding in the closet. These slayings took the life of 4 innocent people, as Darren got the wrong house. As the 3 men were hired to do a job by the Vermont club owner, he hired the group to take the life of a woman who had a lawsuit against him. He wanted to eliminate the problem, but this completely went left. Horace, Darren, and Little Fee will all be charged with the slayings. At trial, police will bring up Little Fee's deep gang history with the 60s, his past records of him doing several robberies, and just being overall terror to the streets. They wanted Little Fee off the streets, and this was his last straw. This case was all over the news, and with so much evidence against him, he was done for. More and more people would come forth with evidence against Little Fee. A man named James told police Little Fee gave him the strap he used in the slayings to destroy, and a jacket to wash. He washed the jacket, but kept the strap. James was arrested on a separate charge and went to snitching on Little Fee to get less time. Little Fee's lawyer would try to make the jury feel sorry for him, stating how bad his upbringing affected his life with no father and a toxic mom, saying he was doomed from the start. Little Fee's grandmother, little brother, and an old teacher were speaking his defense, stating how he was a good kid and looked out for a lot of people. But none of that worked. Darren, Horace, and Little Fee were all convicted for the crime. They're still all currently in prison to this day. Horace got life, and Darren and Little Fee were both sent to San Quentin and sentenced to death. Little Fee would go to San Quentin and immediately be a prominent Crip, even being close to Tookie. But by 1988, this would all go bad. It was allegedly said that Little Fee was told by Tookie to stab Darren. Tookie stated he may be a snitch. Little Fee rejected it and decided to defy Tookie's orders, but he knew this could cost his life, so he decided to stab Tookie instead. He stabbed Tookie in the neck. This would shake up the yard and cause division and segregation. Little Fee would continue to live his life on death row, banged out and being a menace. But I do see what Munster was saying though. Don't Little Fee look like a little ass reptile? Like, don't he look like a big ass lizard? But anyway, in 2001, Little Fee will be in more controversy. Little Fee and two other Crips tried to break out, but not tried to break out the jail. They tried to break out and take the lives of the guards. This was a fail though, and they were quickly apprehended. Years after that, Little Fee just continued to run the same program, being a terror to the police, and also cripping and staying in shape. Herman Alexander is now 81 years old and still dealing with the loss of his family. He's been pushing for years for Little Fee to be executed. Crazy thing is, Kermit actually seen Little Fee often as a kid playing Part Warner and interacted with him. Finding out he did it made it worse for Kermit. Now he wants him to be gone forever. Little Fee is now 56 years old and never getting out of prison. Little Fee is just another case of a young dude having a lot of potential in sports or life in general. But the situations involving his life, his family, not having the right guidance or support, and also traumatic experiences can lead you down a wrong path and a way into destruction. This was Little Fee's story. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.